do you think the Biden administration has done so far?
Honestly, they're killing it, especially because they're handling of the war in Ukraine. I think the amount of support we're providing is really making a difference out there, and that's a really big deal for me.
Do you think America is heading in the right direction under Biden?
Are you kidding me?
Joe Biden's doing a pretty good job. I hope he continues.
All this wokeness, I can't handle that. Maybe it's just because I'm old, but it's just doesn't fly with me.
Yeah, so there's talks about the polls are indicating a red wave across America. Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think Democrats are going to keep control of the House and the Senate?
You know, the usual way elections go in the middle of a president's term is there should be a red wave. If there is one, I think it'll be pretty small. So really, that's the news story.
Do you want there to be a red wave?
Absolutely not.
Katie Davis-Court reporting for Rebel News. It is that great time of year again, United States midterm elections, and Rebel News has reporters on the ground in Seattle, in Florida, to ask Americans their midterm predictions and what issues they are voting on this election cycle. Let's see what people have to say. What do you think is the biggest issue facing America right now?
The deterioration of our democracy. Just the people denying elections does not vibe with me. Yeah, I don't know.
The economy, what the Democrats are doing as far as all this wokeness, I can't handle that. Maybe it's just because I'm old, but it's just doesn't fly with me.
Honestly, I'd say one of the biggest issues is division. Honestly. I mean, you can say what you want about somebody else. Honestly, you can have differences of opinion, but it's a matter of understanding and doing it respectfully, right? If you and I have a difference of opinion, right, and you bring logic to that argument, and I don't, then it doesn't make much sense for you to listen to me because I'm just kind of speaking out of my behind, essentially. So I think division is one of the biggest things, and understanding and realizing, hey, sometimes it's not a team. This isn't a game. These are lives at risk, right? You're taking a risk, right? It's not a matter of my team versus your team. It's a matter of, okay, well, what's best for everybody, you know? And sometimes it takes a little bit to give up for that.
Yeah, definitely. So more healthy dialogue amongst all political parties, you would say.
I would say that's part of it, but I also think a little bit of common sense kind of comes into play as well, right? Because, I mean, a multitude of life comes down to like black and white. Maybe not so much with other topics, right? Sometimes you'll have an instance where, hey, you want something to be done, right? You'll have a way of doing it, but sometimes getting funding for that might not be so easy, right? You might be taking from sources that also might need said funding.
Well, we've already voted. We voted a little bit early because we're actually poll workers. So we want to make sure we got our vote in before we actually work that day. We want to make sure that we get people in that are going to help with our security on the border.
That's a big question. Racism, I guess. But I would say in terms of this election, I would like to see ranked choice voting. It would be nice to make that happen.
Yeah, so you said racism. Can you elaborate on that?
I think the last couple of years have exposed us to be a very racist country, whether people want to accept it or not. I think it's kind of undeniable at this point. So yeah, I think that's a huge issue.
The fall of democracy.
Can you elaborate?
I just feel like we're so divided, and it seems like there's so much negative stuff. I can't really elaborate, but
inflation and the border and God. We want God back in our country. I love this country. We have to bring back people who really care about this country.
Probably workers' rights, yeah. The ability of workers to unionize in their workplaces. Political power of people being properly represented in Congress. Yeah, probably also real estate, I think, is a huge issue right now in the way that it's afforded rights to landlords, you know, disproportionately over like tenants and things like that. I think in Washington in particular, we have a decent situation with like tenant rights and stuff like that, but across the country, we could probably use more reform.
I think our country is very divided, and there's a lot of racism.
Yeah, I agree.
You agree?
Yep. The main issues for me are keeping all of the people that do not belong in our country legally out, because there's enough people here that need food and that need place to live. We don't have extra money to worry about the entire world. We have to take care of our own first.
It seems like a lot of economic issues seem to be impacting people. We've heard a lot of that with like some of the gas prices a while ago. So I think that's going to be a major factor. There's also the Supreme Court decision a while ago. Hoping that still has an effect and pulls Democratic voters out, but I guess we'll just have to see.
So inflation?
Yeah, inflation is also a pretty big issue. The value of people's dollars going down and it being harder and harder for people to buy stuff. It's definitely weighing on a lot of people's minds, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so there's talks about the polls are indicating a red wave across America. Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think Democrats are going to keep control of the House and the Senate?
You know, the usual way elections go in the middle of a president's term is there should be a red wave. If there is one, I think it'll be pretty small. So really, that's the news story.
Do you want there to be a red wave?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People are just frustrated with all the gas prices and everything else. One thing I do want to say, and I hope he hears this, is that I don't think we should have 6 months to a year of campaigning. That good money could go to the poor people that are out there. And I think, once you've said it, just said it. But we don't need to have our television constantly with these campaigns.
Who knows? Doesn't really depend on us in Washington here, so.
I think they'll keep control. At least I hope so. I mean, I'm not going to say which way I am, one way or the other, but I do believe that, people will, common sense will prevail. I think empathy and compassion will also prevail, and it should, right? Having an understanding for one another, and that's really what it comes down to. And again, what it really comes down to, it's a matter of lesser of two evils, right? You may not get the perfect choice, but essentially you have a choice between, say, a stale piece of bread or a crap sandwich. Which one would you rather have? I'd probably take the stale bread. It may not be the best option, but it's the best option of the two, essentially.
So you say lesser of two evils. Would that mean that Democrats are the lesser of two evils?
I would say so, absolutely, without a doubt in my mind. I mean, again, if we go back to the Roe versus Wade, who brought that up? It's common sense. It's the Republicans, right? But again, doesn't mean Republicans won't have a decent idea every now and then, but essentially what it comes down to is common sense, right? I'm not going to go and tell you what you should do with your body. It's not my right? It's not fair.
I've talked to a number of Democrats that are actually going to vote Republican this time because they're fed up with what's going on.
I'm hoping that Democrats keep control, but we'll see. It can be scary to listen to the media, but also they were wrong about whether or not Trump would win. So I'm trying to be optimistic that they're going to be wrong in the opposite direction this time.
No, Democrats are going to pull through. I hope. Fingers crossed.
How about you?
We have to go to volleyball.
What
she said.
No, not unless you're extremely rich and you're here illegally. I don't see why anyone would vote for him right now. No. I live on Social Security and I can barely make ends meet.
That's a tough question. Yeah, I don't know. I've been hearing a lot about the red wave too. It's been a lot of polls showing that a lot of college-educated males in particular are swinging red. But yeah, I don't know. I think at least for me personally, I think I know a lot of people in my age cohort that are still strongly riding for the Democratic Party. And yeah, I don't know. I think that it might not be as much of a red wave as people think it is. Yeah.
So what's your predictions? Democrats going to come on top or Republicans?
For this midterm, I hate to say it, but probably Republicans. But I think it kind of swings back and forth a lot. So I can't really get a good read on it as much as other midterms. But yeah, I think it's probably safe to say Republicans will take a couple more seats, get a little bit more ground in the House, and probably the Senate too. I don't know. We'll see.
I haven't followed it enough, but I think Democrats will keep control.
I kind of feel the same way. It might be Republicans. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm hoping, or I think that it will be still Democratic.
There's a lot of talk of a red wave. Do you think the Republicans will be able to flip the House and the Senate?
That's our hope and prayer, and we believe it'll happen.
It's up in the air. I think I looked at what is it, 538 or whatever, and it's not looking too good. I guess we'll just have to see what happens.
What do you want to see happen?
Obviously, I want to see a blue wave, see the Democrats hold on to the Senate and the House of Representatives. But I guess we'll just have to see.
How do you think the Biden administration has done so far?
Honestly, they're killing it, especially because their handling of the war in Ukraine. I think the amount of support we're providing is really making a difference out there, and that's a really big deal for me. Also, student loans. That was a good one. What else was good? Oh, and the pardoning of the Miranda offenses on the federal guns. Yeah.
Do you think America is heading in the right direction under Biden?
Are you kidding me? And it's sad that they've put this old man who can't even say a sentence, and they put him out there as president of the United States. Plus, he's so compromised by the Chinese government. It's a shame, and it's a crime.
Joe Biden's doing a pretty good job. I hope he continues.
No, I think it's absolutely the wrong direction. You know, we were doing so well before, and you know, the energy thing is a big thing. You know, our energy supply is being depleted. Biden is sending our reserve off somewhere. I don't know. I heard part of it was going to China. I don't even know if that's true, but it's no longer a reserve. It's way down. If we were to get in a combat situation, you're not going to have an electric tank. You know, it's just not going to work. You can't go too far in it. So we need oil and gas and diesel fuel. I keep hearing that our supply of diesel fuel is way down, and we've got a supply chain issue. How are you going to get stuff from one place to another if there's no diesel fuel? Because most of it travels in trucks or even trains that run on diesel fuel. So, you know, we're going to get in big trouble if we don't change what's going on.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think that's what's causing all these problems. Everybody's disagreeing. We never had problems like this before, but now we seem to have problems all the time. They're worrying about 5% of the population, another 10% of another population. That's not the issue. We got to go with the majority of the people.
I certainly hope so, because the way things are going right now, our country is becoming weaker and weaker rather than the strongest country. We're turning into the weakest.
Does a candidate stance on COVID help you decide who you're going to vote or not for?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are unvaccinated, proudly so, and we've been disserviced by family, by friends, by the government, inability to travel. And only now is the truth coming out for those that want to look that it was all a sham and that the country was shut down. We're very fortunate to have Ron DeSantis here, who opened up Florida and made this a livable situation for us.
The school thing, shutting down the school thing was a big mistake. Making people wear masks when the masks really weren't important. And then all the lying that went on leading up to all that. I mean, I can't trust them because everything changed from one day to the next.
I feel like we did have a problem, but I think they carried to extremes that children should have been allowed to go to school without masks on.
Yes, only because I had friends come down here last year from New York, and they couldn't believe how everything was open and how we didn't shut down small businesses so that they were able to make a living. People were able to make a living and pay their bills. Up there, they shut everything down, and that's one of the reasons why they came down here to see me, because they couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't see their family members. My aunt was in a nursing home. Her family couldn't see her for over a year.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed our coverage of today's events, please go to rebelnewsusa.com and smash that donate button. We are 100% crowdfunded by you, so we rely on you guys to donate to help us continue covering the other side of the story. And if you would like to tune in to United States midterm election special coverage, go to Andrew Says Live tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern.